Hi, I'm author Julie B Campbell, and while I am not very good at sewing, I do write the character F in the Perspective series who is good at sewing, so I thought I would do this video on how to make non-medical masks out of old t-shirts and old pillowcases and whatever 100% cotton you happen to have around the house. So I'm just showing here the types of fabric that I had around. This was an old pillowcase that was still in very good condition because you don't want it to be too beat up. The fabric still has to have some substance to it. And then there was an old shirt too. And then I used a measuring tape and a little pencil. That was that and the straight edge that I'm about to show in the form of a big book. That was what I used to measure the fabric. And then I just need some pins, a sewing machine, some thread, and this wire. I use this is gardening wire, but it's plastic coated, and these masks have a little bit of a wire at the nose piece so you can form it to your face. So the plastic coating is important because it stops it from going rusty if you wash them, which you must do. I also use baby wool, or well, I know as an alternative a lot of people will use ribbon. I haven't had a lot of luck with ribbon, so I just use baby wool. I have it in pink and blue because those are the colors in which it is sold, and so that's nice and soft against your face and it's easy to tie around your head. Oh, and a pair of scissors. So that's what you need. And so here I have the squares of fabric that I cut out in advance for this video because it takes me forever to do that. I measured it. They are 8 inches by 10 inches and I've pinned them together. And if you saw at one corner, I double pinned it. That's to remind myself not to sew over that point because they are the right sides together, which means the good sides together. And you need to leave a hole so that you can flip it inside out once you're done sewing all the way around. So that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just using a regular straight stitch and going all the way around to sew both pieces of material together. Not very well. Designer F would be pretty ticked off at me. I would never be able to work with him or work for him. He would fire me on the spot with severe tongue lashing. But yep, that's what I've done there. And don't forget to backstitch at the start and the end to really secure your stitch. But that's what it looks like. It's just a straight line right across. I normally say to go about 1/4 of an inch in, but I always end up at about 1/2 inch because I'm not that good at sewing. So I trim off the extra fabric because I'm awesome, and then I trim the corners, not getting too close to cut the stitches, because if you cut the stitches you have to, redo the stitches. But that's to make nice corners when you flip it inside out. So that's what I'm about to show you, and I like to use a good broken pencil to poke out the corners when I turn fabric inside out. I find a sharpened pencil is too much and it tends to jam too much fabric through and you can end up breaking your corners. But with a broken pencil, it's just enough. It's just sort of pointy enough to fix the corners. So here I'm just using that hole that I left behind that I mentioned earlier, and I am turning it inside out. And I'm not very good at it, and it takes me a while, but once I do it, it's done. And then I just take that pencil and I jam it into the hole that I left behind that I used to turn it inside out, and I just make sure that all the corners are poked through all the way. It's so much easier and faster than trying to do it just forcing the fabric from the outside. So once I am done all 4 corners and fussing around with it and making sure that it's all nice and neat, then what I have is essentially just a normal rectangle of the right side out, so the good side of the fabric facing out, and it looks just like that. And it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, it just needs to be good enough. So next is that wire that I was telling you about, the plastic coated one, so that it won't rust. Normally you need about 7 inches of wire, but my wire is not a very strong gauge. It's extremely flimsy, so I take 14 inches of wire and fold it in half, and then I hold 2 sides of it together, and then just take my other finger and wrap it around and around, twist the whole thing around so that it will stay together in place once it is inside the fabric. It's really not that complex. And then I just twist it all the way from one end to the other so that it's good and even, and I squash one end, and then the end that I actually cut that has sort of the sharp pieces, I fold that over so that there aren't sharp pieces inside the fabric, because you don't want to hurt yourself with it or ruin your mask. So there is about a 7-inch piece of wire to go over the nose of the mask. And I insert that into that same hole that I used to flip it inside out and to poke out the corners. And then I drop it into the opposite long edge. So it's up there now. I'm just demonstrating that's where the wire is. You can see it, it stays bent, and that's where it is. It's still not a heavy gauge. It's just enough to basically hold its shape, which it wouldn't do it on its own. So then I pin it into place so it doesn't move all around while I'm sewing, because I don't feel like sewing over it and busting my machine needle. And those pins just make sure that I don't do that, and then I will pop it into the machine and just do one straight stitch along the end. It doesn't have to be fancy, it just needs to be close enough to the wire to hold it into place. Again, not too close or you'll break your needle. And just do a straight line, and don't forget to back stitch at the beginning and end to secure it. So that's all I've done there. Just a straight line, as you can see there. It's not even all that straight, but it's just enough. And that's going to hold the nose piece in place like that. So that's what it looks like. That's why the wire is there, because otherwise there would be a gap between your nose and your cheek. The wire lets you form it down or make little grooves around it in case you want it to be rounded. So now it's time to sew up that little hole that we've been using all this time for turning it inside out, etc. And I don't do a very good job of that, but it gets the job done, and it doesn't matter because we're going to be folding that over and nobody will know the difference anyway. So this is the point where I'm looking for stuff that I should have had handy for the video, but I didn't. But there we go. Now I have about 50 inches of string, or some people use clothesline rope, or you can use like a good heavy ribbon. I just use this chenille baby wool, and I tie a knot on either end. It's about 50 inches. I tend to go 52 inches or so, because you never know how much the wearer is going to want to use. But you just use one big long whatever you have, a piece of yarn or whatever, as long as it's the smoother and softer the better, because it slides through the material better, because you're going to use it kind of like a drawstring. And you sew it with the open ends on the same side as the wire. So the open ends will be up, and to do that, all you do is just fold the fabric over top carefully, and then I'm going to pin it into place. And this is the really careful part, so that you don't end up sewing over the rope. You're making a little pouch, a pocket to go for the rope to slide through, like that, but you can't sew the rope or it won't be able to slide, and it won't be an adjustable mask. So now we do the other side, so the loop is at the bottom of the mask and it's not twisted. And you just fold that over like that, and the other side has the open end of the string. That's the top side. So I pinned that just like that through the magic of speeding up this video, and now it's shaped like that, so that the open end is at the top, just as I discussed, where the wire is, and the bottom has the loop. So now it is a matter of sewing very carefully along where it's pinned, and I tend to move the needle out. There's that setting that lets you like shift the needle left and right. I try to make it as close to the edge as possible so that I am not sewing through my string. So that's what I'm doing here, and this is the point where the thread breaks for some reason that I don't know what it is, so I just start from scratch and re-thread my entire machine that has been working fine until now, but then it just mysteriously stops working. And sometimes I have to redo the bobbin for the same purpose, but fortunately it didn't make me do that this time. So that's just my sewing skills, because I don't have any, and my 3,000-year-old machine, which I absolutely love. But yeah, see, so now I've sewn along that edge, and you can pull the string through either side to make it adjustable. So it's just a straightish line that looks like that on either side, and now the rope will pull through. And then we do the exact same thing on the other end, and we just hope that the thread will behave itself and not break, and I won't have to rethread the entire machine. And then we take a whole pile of pictures for our blog and social media, and take more pictures to show the setting of the needle, and then just get sewing. And don't forget that back stitch at the beginning and the end, just to make sure that everything is like perfectly secure and it's not gonna fall out of place over time, especially because these will be washed every single time you wear them. So then you just make sure that you haven't sewn over the rope, and it's, as long as you've got a good kind of rope that stays in place and you've pinned it well, it shouldn't be too hard. I haven't done it yet, and I've done probably dozens of these things. So that's it. That's all done. I didn't clip the threads yet, so it's still a little bit raw, but that's what the mask looks like. Super straightforward. If I can do it, anybody can do it, as long as you've got a machine. But here's how you put it on. So you take the loop end and you put it around your face. You should be doing this with clean hands, by the way. I'm being very dramatic in this video to show how to wear it. Oh, and I just took off my glasses. But you should be handling this as little as possible. So you draw it up, the mask up to your neck as much as you can, even squinch it a little bit. It will be very tight at this point, but then you'll be raising it up and it won't be tight anymore. So it'll be a little uncomfortable at first and then it won't be. Then raise the mask up, tie it behind your head in a bow or a knot or whatever you find to be the happiest way to do this. Then shape the mask around your face properly. So if you'll see, you can actually bend down that wire. I'm being very dramatic about it. You don't have to push that hard and you don't have to do all these gross looking things with your eyes. And if I'd known that it looked like that, I wouldn't have done this on camera quite so dramatically. But you can shape it all around. You can shape it around your glasses. And as you can see, there is no gap at the sides. You shouldn't be touching your mask this much before you wear it, but I'm just demonstrating here. There is no gap. The drawstring really pulls the whole thing. It is quite secure to your face, and then even if you have glasses, because there's that wire, you can shape it around and everything is fine. And that's all I have to say about wearing it, except that, you know, you should trim off all of those extra threads, which I did right there. So let's put the scissors back. And that's all you need to do. And then to take off the mask, you don't even really need to untie it. You just need to pull it off over your head. Touch it as little as possible. Pull it all the way away from your face and pull it off over your head and put it in a bag or throw it in the laundry immediately, then wash your hands. Never, ever, ever reuse these masks, and enjoy. Thank you for watching and stay healthy, everybody. I hope this video does help you out.